You know, ever since I made my X account, I've just been learning so much about just how dishonest leftists truly are. A few days ago, I found exactly that. You could see the post on your screen here. I'm not gonna read it out. I called the person who wrote the quote post dishonest and also trying to use manipulative language and failing pretty badly. I was not expecting to see the following retardation on your screen. Yes, I would actually. Enlighten me how something about how a person is born can shatter a family. Please elucidate me, and don't just spout religious propaganda. Provide me with actual scientific evidence and peer-reviewed research papers. Do it. Do it. When I saw this reply, holy shit, this faggot's response really did bother me. First off, you're not going to be finding empirical scientific data on this topic. It's a moral issue. He's already starting this whole thing off on a bad foot, and it's just going to make me easier to win the whole exchange. I replied with, if I did, you would not be able to understand what is actually written in the studies, or just dismiss them as fascist propaganda. I know you used religious, but for you, they're interchangeable. I have plenty of sources on this topic. However, he just dismissed them because they're from Not the Bee or Life News. He replied with, they aren't, and what makes you say that? Did fascists conduct the research? Even so, if they're properly peer-reviewed, it shouldn't matter. Quit your bullshit, show me evidence. Now let's get to the reason why I decided to call the video the way that I called it. Rule number 1. If someone is being dishonest to you, whether it's right off the bat or even later on during the discussion, you do not owe them a source until they change their behavior. I even say something similar in response to this faggot. I do not provide sources with people who are dishonest. I know how you lot act and behave. It would be a waste of my time because no matter what I'd send, you'd disregard it. You did this to yourself when you misconstrued my argument, so I'm gonna be stubborn. This leads me to rule number 2. Do not let these people backtrack on their words. They established that they're not going into this argument with good faith, and so when they backtrack, it's ultimately them trying to have a power play on you. Deny them any chance they have to backpedal. This is how this guy tries to backpedal on his words. I have in no way been dishonest. Cruel? Yes, particularly in my language. But that is because you made a discriminatory statement towards a group I happen to be involved with. I'm willing to have a conversation on this topic. However, all I ask is you support your claim with evidence. This is him trying to backtrack, so he forces me to comply with him. I spotted this out from a mile away. I know you don't want a conversation. I have pattern recognition skills. I said it before, but no matter what I'd send, you just dismiss it. So I'm not going to waste my time. I have sources, I'm just not going to share them with you because I know how you'd respond. I'm basically telling this guy, keep up this behavior and you're never going to get anything out of me. Rule 2, Section A. You'd know if you're successful if the person immediately goes on the attack again. Also, this guy doesn't know anything about how burden of proof works. But anyways, let's read his next statement. If it's an actual scientific peer-reviewed paper, I will consider it and your claim. The burden of proving your statement falls on you for claiming it. I will consider it false if you fail to provide evidence for the contrary. I decided to stop taking screenshots of this conversation because ultimately his point just devolves into leftist word salad. Rule number 3, know when to disengage. Do so for your own time. Ultimately, the average leftist you debate online is suffering through a chronic case of motivated reasoning. Say your piece honestly, and if they continue to be dishonest, just disengage. You'll have won the argument, even if it doesn't seem like you have. Rule 3, Section A. Be honest and try your best not to omit important information. If you really do care about how you look to your audience, follow this section to the letter. Rule 3, Section B. You could leave any online discussion at any time. If you're on X, utilize the mute conversation feature if you really don't want to be a part of a debate anymore. Let's move on to the sequel conversation, shall we? As you can see, I wrote a response to some guy incorrectly interpreting as his pronoun rant. And for anybody who knows a thing or two about what's going on, they would know that I'm correct. In this day and age, what else could a pronoun selector possibly be, other than far left propaganda being pushed into a game? With my post being written, I encountered the other type of leftist. The guy who thinks he made an argument but in reality did not make one at all. This fuckwad said, solely political purposes, and it's the English language. Okay, what's your argument? Because that's not an argument. Then again, leftists on Twitter are some of the most illiterate people on the planet, so it doesn't surprise me that these types of people exist. This leads me into rule number 4, challenge their intelligence. You don't have to call them a retard, though you can if you want. It'll probably be really funny. But my reply of, stop being dishonest, you know what as meant by pronouns, is a simple test of intellect. Can he actually grasp my point or can he not? Fuck it, you probably got a brief glimpse of what he said after. He did not. But let's read it anyways. I'm not being dishonest. Identity representation in video games is not political. It's literally just the English language being implemented in a better way so that in a game where your character is a self-insert, everyone can insert themselves into it. This isn't rocket science. The argument that people like me and Az have been making on this subject is not about player customization as a whole, but it's about why this specific customization option is in so many video games now. So yes, my reply of, and Az's point still evades you, absolutely applies here. He failed what is a rather simple intelligence check. Rule number 5, if you're the trollish type like myself, watch the ensuing spurgout and egg it on. Don't ever do this when it comes to real debates, but on the internet, hey, it's fair game, and it's also quite funny. Albeit, it could also be frustrating if you're trying to actually reach to this NPC. This is the part where the spurgout begins. Not really. There's really zero reasons to act like he is over the literal English language being used in a better way. You can't defend him or his points at all. Rule 5, Section A. To achieve a greater spurgout, sometimes you have to be a bit more serious in your words. Case in point, my response. You really are daft, aren't you? I know what point Az is making, but do you? I want you to think on this. Through that question, I learned that this guy was completely incapable of thinking. I have a feeling he didn't have the talking points at the ready. Rule 5, Section B. If you cause your opponent to spurg out, you won the argument. Rule 5, Section C. Do a little victory dance if they're really acting spiteful. Case in point, this guy's final reply before I got to read his profile. I will never understand how people think like you. It truly must be a sad existence. Wouldn't you know, this also plays handily into rule number 6. Every single accusation a leftist throws at you is a projection. This is also known as the iron law of woke projection. I also have proof that what that guy said earlier is all projection. We have his bio. My name's Alex. I'm an ADHD, I guess that's autistic ADHD, trans girl lesbian gamer. I am obsessed with Moira Overwatch 2. Well, gee whiz, no wonder why he said that I'm living a miserable existence. That's what he's going through. Let's get to some more rules, shall we? This is one that I'm borrowing from the Kiwi Farms. Do not post if you have nothing to say. Sometimes it's probably for the best that you don't post something, even if you have a really good argument. If you don't want to deal with the headache, then don't post it. Leftists are horrible at following this rule. That's mainly because they bought all their fucking posts anyways. Dreamleaf. Evan. Airbagged. Like with the guy in the second conversation, they think they have something to say, but in reality, it's just nothing. But when they do this, they come off as either extremely mentally disabled or just pure rage bait. They are retarded, and they have some form of humiliation fetish. With all that being said, I'll catch you guys later, but I'll end this video with one of my favorite clips from SpongeBob. It's so indicative of accounts like the ones I've said earlier, whenever they post something so retarded, and they just use bots to make it more popular than it actually is.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?